Hello and welcome to the office of Upsony LLC in downtown Tbilisi, Georgia. My name is John Keogh and I'm the author of EyesBot. Today I'll be telling you about how to use EyesBot to stream images from your iOS device, an iPod, iPhone, or iPad, to a browser. I'll also be talking about the new feature with this release, motion detection. I'll divide this talk into three sections. The first section will be using the EyesBot app interface, so the preferences and streaming. The second portion will be about the browser interface, how to connect with a browser to EyesBot. And the third portion will be the new, how to get the most out of the new motion detection feature with EyesBot in EyesBot 1.1. I'll bring the camera around this side and we'll start with the app interface for EyesBot. We'll start by launching EyesBot. And this is the main interface. About self-explanatory. We'll start with preferences. The Bonjour name of this EyesBot, if you have a Bonjour enabled browser, you can search for EyesBot using this name. If not, there's also a URL that will be presented on the streaming screen, which we'll see in just a moment. Password to connect via browser, you should always set this. If you don't, then anybody connecting, or anybody on your network, if they know the URL of your instance of EyesBot, they can connect. So do set that. And port, you probably won't need to change. What this is, if you're having problems connecting, it may be that you have a firewall issue between your browser and the instance of EyesBot that you're running, that is your iOS device, and so you may need to adjust the port number. If you need to, then you might try 80, or you might try a higher number port, such as 9,000. In general, though, you won't change this. The maximum frames per second, you can set the frames per second using the browser interface, which we'll see just in a few minutes, or you can set the maximum here. So the options that are presented on the browser will be up to the highest here. So if you want to enable using 30 frames per second, which if you have an iPad that you'll be running this on, or a newer iOS device, that should be fine. For an older iOS device, you probably want to keep it throttled because the higher the frame rate, the more the power consumption, and also the more taxing it is on the device. So 20 should give you pretty good results. So let's save this and now we're back at the main screen, and I'll go ahead and start streaming. So what we see here is a URL. This URL you can use to connect to EyesBot. The browser and the iOS device must be on the same network. So this isn't something that you can use remote to connect to your iOS device. That is, you can't be at work, leave this at home and connect. We're working on a separate solution for remote monitoring, which would involve pushing images if there's motion detected. That is not available yet. So this is if you're at home and you want to, let's say, monitor what's going on in your backyard, or you want to leave this downstairs while you're upstairs at night and see what's going on in your downstairs. That's the typical use for EyesBot. So now we'll switch to using the browser. This shows the relationship between the URL that is presented on the streaming interface and the browser. I've already typed in the IP address and the port. That's this information from the streaming interface. And when I click return, what will happen is the images that EyesBot is streaming will be presented in the browser. And this is the login screen. As you recall, just set the password to hi. Oops. And I'm just pointing the EyesBot up at the ceiling. Here I'm pointing it back at the video, and I can just kind of pan around the office, and you'll see somewhat messy office, dimly lit, but basically it's a way to turn your iOS device into something that can stream images to your browser. And here's the my iPod turning slowly. I'll just point this up at the ceiling while I talk about the interface, the web interface. Log out, because this is logged in, you can click log out if you want to stop streaming. If you haven't logged in, this will be grayed out. Take photo. What happens here, if you click take photo, then whatever EyesBot is looking at, for example, I'll point it at the window, it will take a photo of that. So that's the functionality for take photo. It saves it in your camera roll on your iOS device. Pause, you can stop streaming temporarily, and then resume. I've got my iPod pointed up at the ceiling. Help, if you want help, just click this and it'll start help in a new tab. The help page isn't available yet, but it starts a new, but it will be available by the time this version of the app is launched. Now, if the frames per second, if you want a smoother video, then you want to change the frames per second. In the preferences, you'll recall that we set the max at 30 frames per second, and that actually gives a reasonably smooth video. If you want to use less power, then just set it to 1 frame per second. But you get a very jerky video. Now, this is the motion detection, and that's the next section. So thus far, we've looked at the app interface and the browser interface, and both are relatively simple. The motion detection is somewhat more complicated. For motion detection, there are 3 things to remember. First, you have to set up your browser and your iOS device so that they don't turn off. Because if they turn off, then you're not going to get any alert if motion is detected. If the iOS device turns off, then it's not going to be detecting motion at all. The browser turns off, then it won't be reporting on motion detected. The second thing is you want to plug them in, because if you're streaming images from your iOS device all night, you won't have any battery left. And you want to stream at roughly 10 frames per second. Otherwise, you may miss motion. For example, if something goes across the screen fast. So those are 2 main points. Make sure that your browser and iOS device don't turn off, and I'll demo that in a moment, how to set those up, how to set that up. And the second thing is you want to plug it in. The third thing is that you have to make sure that you have the proper lighting. So if there's no light, the iOS device won't, that is EyesBot, won't be able to detect motion. What it does is it looks for the difference between 1 frame and the next. So if it's dark, then what it'll see is just noise, just electronic noise. Another thing is you want to make sure that there's no visual noise. What that means is like light from outside, or for example, if you pointed it at a wall and the headlights of a car went across the wall, it would detect that as motion. So what you want is a place with no visual noise and decent artificial lighting. You don't want natural lighting at all, because if a cloud passes in front of the sun, suddenly the image is different and it'll detect that as motion. So you want no visual noise. You want just artificial lighting, and you also want to think about where you want to deploy it. In my case, I have it pointed at a door in my office because I don't want anybody coming through that door at night. And if somebody does, then it'll alarm, which I'll demo shortly. And also there's different sensitivities. For example, low through very high. The low sensitivity is probably what you'll use. If you have it on low sensitivity and somebody opens the door and you're pointing you're pointing EyesBot, that is your iOS device, at the door, it'll alert you. But if you want to see, for example, something distant, like let's say you're looking for a car coming up the drive or something like that, then you probably want to you want to use a different sensitivity, higher sensitivity. You can do a little experimenting and see what works for the case that you're interested in. So first, I'll show how to set your iOS device and browsers so that they don't go off. That is your laptop or whatever you're running the browser on. And then I'll kind of demo the motion detection, how that works. If you want to set up your iOS device so that it won't go to sleep, so that EyesBot will continue to do motion detection, you can click Settings, General, Auto Lock, and change this to Never. This, for example, you can run your EyesBot on an iOS device overnight without it going to sleep. In the morning, you'll probably want to change it back to whatever the default is, 3 minutes, for example. If you run it overnight, you might be concerned about screen life, and I did some research about screen life for iOS devices, and it looks like they're about 6 years or longer. That would be the mean time to failure expressed as years. So running it overnight repeatedly shouldn't be a problem. However, of course, whenever you're using something for extended periods of time, effect on the lifetime of the device is certainly a valid concern. If you're running the browser that you're pointing at EyesBot on a Mac, you can change the Mac to not go to sleep by going to System Preferences, Energy Saver, and then turn the computer sleep to Never. Don't forget to turn it back in the morning, otherwise the computer won't go to sleep. And you can leave the display sleep to whatever you have it at, since you don't actually need the display on for the EyesBot to continue to function. The browser will continue to grab frames and will alert if there's motion detected, and then you can hit the keyboard to wake up the display. At night, I leave EyesBot on. I have it plugged in and set up, pointing at a door. I'm going to demonstrate what happens when I go through that door. I'll take my laptop on the other side, and then I'll walk through the door, and the motion detection alarm will go off on my laptop. Just to be clear where the sound is coming from, the iOS device does not make any noise when the alarm goes off. It's only your browser. I'm now on the outside of the door, and I'm looking at EyesBot. I'm about to log in, and I just set the motion detection on, so I'll walk through the door and we'll see if the motion detection goes off and sounds an alarm on the browser. And there it is, alerting me. You can see I'm holding my laptop and this camera. Now I'm sitting back at my desk. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the alarm. I can show the image that triggered the alarm, the alert. It takes a moment to load it. And there it is as I'm coming through the door. And I can either save this to the camera roll, or I'll just go ahead and clear it. And so now I could turn the motion detection back on if I wanted to. Well, that's it for today, and thank you for joining me. Bottom line is that EyesBot is useful for streaming images from iOS devices to a browser located on the same network. We have plans going forward for additional security features, as well as other features unrelated to security. So hopefully EyesBot will meet your needs, and if you have any questions, please contact me. Thank you.